Hey guys, Rev Chris here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do matters. It's been really interesting in sport recently. I don't know if you have been following the Olympics that were on recently, or in England, certainly the cricket, or maybe even watching tennis. So a lot of these world-class sports stars have been pulling out of events, and in a time we're just coming through COVID and people are really hungry and thirsty to watch sport and play sport, these leaders in sport have been making really tough decisions and have been really putting their mental health and their interior environments first over kind of exterior accolades. So what I mean is, Simone Biles recently, she was in a Tokyo gym, I think, watching other athletes compete, and suddenly she realized that the tendency in her to just win at all costs, the pressure of winning that was being put on her, she understood it as toxic. And she decided to put her mental health first and pulled out of the Olympics, which is an amazingly courageous thing to do. In cricket, in England, there's a guy called Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes is a phenomenal cricketer. He kind of single-handedly won the World Cup and the Ashes for England, and he recently pulled out of cricket for a year, citing that he wanted to put his mental health and deal with depression first, and he pulled out. I don't know if you watched Emma Raducanu, the rising star of tennis. Recently, she's just doing amazing in the US Open, but when she was playing in Wimbledon, I really enjoyed watching her. I thought she was phenomenal. And this young girl who entered in to tennis at Wimbledon through a wild card basically had, I think it's kind of known as a panic attack. She couldn't breathe, her chest tightened up, and she lost her breath and she had to leave the court. And instead of, in a sense, being told, white knuckle it, get through this, come on, just get back, she decided, no, I'm going to stop, I'm going to get myself better. And she pulled out of Wimbledon. It's been really amazing to see these guys who said, we can gain the world, we can gain a gold medal, we can be number one, we can win the World Cups or whatever. But actually, those things pale in significance to the fact that I'm not in a good place right now, and I need to sort myself out. And I think that is amazing, and I think that is courageous. And in a time when we're looking at our political leaders and we're a little bit frustrated, disappointed with the decisions and sometimes what can be seemingly lack of courage from them, our sports stars have been raising up and have been saying, no, this needs to happen, I need to sort out what's going on in here first. And what we do in life, the decisions we make, the actions we take matter. And as Christians, we're called to good action. James says that, faith without works is dead, which is a challenge to us all. But what we do matters because what God has done matters. God is a God of action. In the Old Testament, God would refer to himself, I am the one who brought you out of Egypt. I am the one who provides, Jehovah Jireh. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's a God of a relationship of action between those guys. It seems as if God introduces himself by his action. He is a God of action. He is a God who interacts with his people. He is a God who moves, who heals, who lifts up the orphan, who heals the sick, raises the dead. God is a God of action, and we see most that fully realized in the person of Jesus. What Jesus has done matters for us, for all of creation. And that's a challenge to us. It's a challenge to us. And how do we know what we are doing is right? How do we know that our action is following God's will? And I want to read to you an amazing quote by a guy called Thomas Merton, who's an English guy who was born, raised in the UK, I believe, went to Oxford University, and then eventually lived in America. His father was American. And tragically, Thomas Merton was found dead in his room in Vietnam. And basically what had happened is he'd been speaking at a conference in Vietnam, and they left for the day, they left for the afternoon to go and rest before they had their evening session, and he didn't return to the evening session, and people went to find out what had happened to him, and they found him dead, lying next to a fan in his room. And it seems as though he'd been electrocuted by his fan in his room, although some people think that maybe something else had gone on, because he was speaking out against the use of atomic weapons, and he was speaking out against Vietnam War, and he was an amazing man to listen to. Anyway, this guy is an incredible Cistercian monk, and he wrote this when it comes to like wanting to do God's will. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think that I'm following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope that I have that desire in all that I'm doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, and though I may know nothing about it. Therefore will I trust you always. Though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death, I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. I love that phrase. The desire to please you does in fact please you. Do you have that desire to please God? Jesus uses a phrase, sincerity and truth. And I think as Christians, if we have that desire, if you truly desire to please God, then you will. If you truly desire to change an action or an addiction or something, I think that God knows the will of our hearts. And if we desire it with sincerity, even if we find the weakness of our flesh impeding us or coming against us and we find trouble with it, I still think God receives it. You know, what we do matters. How we act matters. The condition of our heart matters to God. I want to encourage you, firstly, like those sports stars, to ask yourself, what's going on? What's going on in here at the moment? How am I living? How am I thinking? Do I need to sort some of that out? And then ask yourself, it sounds really funny, but do I really love God? Do I really want to please him? Is he the first love? And then follow that. I don't know. I mean, we're all trying to figure out this life with fear and trembling, right? We're all trying to figure out what God's will is for our life and do it. I suppose the way that I've acted in my life is trusting that I do love God and that the compass of my heart, while it may be moved this way and that way, ultimately north is God, and I'll come back to him. So, yeah, that's it from me, I think, today. Figure out here and here. Figure out where the sincerity is and love of God is. And trust that God receives that and he will guide you. And his purposes will be done in your life. Don't be afraid, know you're loved. Peace.